Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So our mission today is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
We're basically shrinking a big chunk of music history right down into a little metal box.
Yeah, it's a cool way to put it.
We're doing a compact history lesson focused on funk and filtering. And specifically, we're analyzing the sources we have on the BR's TW1 Touch Wah.
Okay, so just to clarify for everyone, especially if the jargon's new, we're talking about an effect pedal that, reacts to how you play. The BOD FS TW1 is technically an auto wah or an envelope filter, and it's pretty significant because when it landed in 1978, it wasn't just another pedal, it was one of the very first filter effects in Boss's compact series, the ones everyone recognizes now.
That timing is really key, isn't it? Because up until the TW1 showed up,
Yeah.
if you wanted that really dynamic, sweepy filter sound,
Right.
the kind that responds instantly to how hard you hit the strings, you were looking at like expensive, huge rack units or, bulky studio equipment.
Absolutely. Stuff most players couldn't afford or haul around.
So the TW1, it essentially democratized that sound. It took that dynamic, touch-sensitive filtering, the whole touch wah idea, and crammed it into a small, tough little box, something anyone could actually stick on a pedal board.
Exactly. It was suddenly portable, a real game changer for gigging musicians needing that specific sound.
And what a sound it was, especially for that era. The TW1 appeared right at the absolute peak of the 70s touch wah craze.
Oh, yeah. Funk, disco, fusion, they were all over those percussive, almost vocal-like filter effects.
And our sources, they consistently bring up the heavy hitters who define that sound, right? We're talking Stevie Wonder, Larry Graham.
Bootsy Collins, of course.
So, yeah. These were the sounds players were hearing on massive hit records. And suddenly the TW1 offered a reliable, consistent way to get that kind of dynamic complexity for themselves.
It really did. It brought that studio-level expressiveness right onto the live stage in a simple stomp box.
What's kind of mind-blowing looking back is that this little analog box came out decades before almost all the digital or optical auto wahs we see now.
That's a great point. It wasn't just filling a niche. It was really setting a new standard for what a compact pedal could do.
And its core design, that analog approach, it basically laid the groundwork for later BOSS filter pedals that became huge hits too.
Definitely. You can draw a direct line to things like the AEW2 Auto Wah and later the AEW3 Dynamic Wah. The TW1 is sort of the granddaddy there.
Okay, so if this little box made such a splash, let's peek under the hood. Let's unpack the actual architecture, because the magic seems to be in how simple the circuit really is.
Right. It's fully analog, which is a huge part of its character that sound people still chase. And its whole operation hinges on a voltage-controlled filter, or VCF.
Okay, VCF. But what's making that voltage control happen? What's the real heart of it?
Well, the absolute core of the TW1's voice is its operational transconductance amplifier, the OTA.
OTA?
Yeah. In these early designs, you often see specific chips mentioned, like the LM3600 or maybe the CA3080. These OTAs are crucial because they're the component that actually modulates the low-pass filter.
And that modulation, that's what gives it the sound.
That's what gives it that immediate, warm, almost squishy kind of analog feel. It's very distinctive, and it's why collectors really prize these original units. It doesn't sound quite like anything digital.
Okay, so the OTA is the component. But how does that actually translate to the touch part, the responsiveness?
Okay, that comes down to the other key part, the envelope detector circuit.
Right.
So this circuit is constantly listening, basically. It tracks the strength, the amplitude of the signal coming from your guitar, how hard you attack the string.
Okay.
And it uses that information, that amplitude level, to instantly adjust the filter's cutoff frequency.
So play softly.
Play softly, the filter stays relatively closed, more subdued, but then you dig in, hit the string hard.
Right.
That spikes the signal. The envelope detector tells the filter open up fast, and you get that classic, expressive, vocal-like wah sweep, all without needing a foot treadle.
That sounds incredibly interactive. But if it's all about input amplitude, that must mean modern players need to be a bit careful, right? Especially with different guitars.
Oh, absolutely. That's a really crucial point for anyone thinking of using one today. It's a real-world consideration. Because that analog circuit is so reactive to the input signal, it generally works best with, say, traditional passive pickups, moderate signal levels.
Okay.
If you plug in something with really high output active pickups or boost the signal heavily before the pedal, there's a very real chance you'll just overload the input immediately.
I think you lose the effect.
Yeah, you can get clipping, distortion, It kind of mushes out, and you lose that clear dynamic sweep, that touch response the pedal is famous for. So you really have to watch your gain staging before hitting the TW1.
That makes sense. And speaking of potential headaches with vintage gear, there's the power thing too, right? That early Bot SS standard.
Yes, the ACA adapter issue. Anyone hunting for a vintage TW1 needs to know this.
So it wasn't the standard 9-volt we use now.
Nope. It was designed for the BI-SS ACA adapter, which was actually an unregulated 12-volt supply that relied on the pedal's internal circuitry, and sometimes being daisy-chained, to drop the voltage down closer to 9V inside the pedal.
Okay, so what happens if you just plug a modern standard 9V power supply into it?
Well, you won't damage it, usually, but it won't get the correct operating voltage. The little LED might light up dimly or maybe not at all, and crucially, the filter sweep won't sound right. It'll be weak or might not trigger properly.
So you need an actual ACA adapter or modify it.
Or modify it, which is common. Or sometimes you can power it correctly by daisy-chaining it from another older BIOS pedal that is getting ACA power. It's a known quirk. You just have to be aware of it.
But a classic vintage pedal hurdle.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know what's inside, and we know the potential gain and power pitfalls. Let's get to the fun part, the controls. How do those 3 simple knobs shape the funk?
Yeah, it's surprisingly simple interface-wise.
First up, you've got sensitivity. What's that doing?
Sensitivity basically adjusts how strongly the envelope detector reacts to your playing.
Okay.
So if you turn it up higher, even lighter picking, smaller changes in dynamics will trigger a more pronounced wah sweep. Turn it down, and you need to hit the strings harder to get the filter to open up significantly.
Got it. So it dials in how touch sensitive it feels. Then there's peak. What's that about? Is that like resonance?
Exactly. Peak is essentially the filter's resonance or the Q factor. Think of it as controlling how sharp or, well, peaky the wah sound is.
Oh, okay.
Keep the peak knob low and the sweep is smoother, more like a subtle vowel sound. Crank it up and you get that really intense, sharp, almost piercing quack sound.
Yeah.
Very funky.
Right, that classic 70s quack.
Yeah.
Okay, sensitivity, peak. What's the third control?
The third control is just a simple switch, but it's maybe the most powerful feature for versatility. The mode switch.
Mode switch, up and down.
Yep, up sweep or down sweep. And that little toggle instantly doubles the kinds of sounds you can get out of the pedal. It's a huge deal.
Okay, so explain the difference. What does up mode sound like?
Up mode is your traditional auto wah sound. The filter sweeps up in frequency when you attack the string. It gives you that classic, bright, funky, vowel-like articulation. Great for rhythm guitar, think disco stabs, or fusion lines.
That sounds like the quintessential auto wah. So what happens in down mode?
Down mode flips it. The filter sweeps downward in frequency after your initial pick attack.
Huh. What kind of sound does that create?
It's fantastic, actually. It creates a much darker feel. Sometimes it sounds almost synth-like, kind of a yoy sound instead of wah, or people describe it as a reverse wah feeling.
Interesting. So less bright and funky, more weird.
Yeah, maybe a bit weirder, more experimental. It offers a completely different texture, less straightforward funk, maybe more suited for atmospheric stuff or unique bass lines.
And if you connect those modes to how people actually use it, it makes sense why it's stuck around. The up mode is just perfect for nailing that 70s funk rhythm guitar, those fusion licks we talked about.
Absolutely, it's that sound.
But the down mode, that makes it really useful for bass players too, right? Giving them those deep, expressive, almost throaty groove tones that can sit really nicely in a mix without getting too harsh.
For sure. Bassists love envelope filters, and that down mode is often a favorite. And of course, like any good filter, you can push it further.
How so?
Well, stick an overdrive, or even better, a fuzz pedal either before or after it.
Yeah.
And you get those really cool, saturated, almost synth-led filter sounds, howling, resonant effects, very creative territory.
Okay, so it was groundbreaking, versatile, but it was an early design. We should probably balance the praise with, what it doesn't do compared to maybe more modern filters. Where were the compromises?
That's fair and crucial for perspective. If we look at it critically, especially compared to later, more complex envelope filters, there are a couple of key design limitations inherent in the TW1's simplicity.
Like what?
Firstly, you don't have any explicit control of a sweep range. Meaning, the actual band of frequencies the filter travels across from low to high, or high to low, is fixed. It's preset in the circuit. You can only adjust how quickly it sweeps with your dynamics via sensitivity, and how sharp the peak is with the peak knob.
But not where the sweep actually starts and finishes in the frequency spectrum.
Exactly. You can't fine-tune the voice of the wah itself, just its reaction and intensity. Modern filters often give you controls for start frequency, stop frequency, or range.
Okay, that's one limitation. What else?
The other big one is the lack of any kind of mix or blend control.
Ah, so you can't blend the wah sound with your clean guitar tone.
Nope. It's all or nothing. The effect is either fully engaged or it's bypassed. You can't dial in just a subtle amount of the filter sweep underneath your dry signal, which is something a lot of players like to do now for more subtle texture.
Right, that makes sense for an early design aiming for simplicity and cost effectiveness, I guess.
Pretty much. Keep it simple, make it work, put it in the box.
And that box itself,
Yeah,
produced between 78 and 82, roughly.
that's the typical range cited. Yeah, a fairly short production run, actually.
So standard stuff otherwise.
Yeah.
Buffered bypass, mono in out.
Yep, standard BISS, buffered electronic bypass, mono input, mono output, and powered by either a 9-volt battery or that tricky ACA adapter we already wrestled with.
Still, despite those limitations and quirks, the simplicity itself seems to be a big part of its appeal, even now.
I think so. The fact that collectors still actively seek out these early units, sometimes paying quite a bit, it speaks volumes. That demand is directly tied to that organic, immediate analog response.
People feel it's warmer, more musical than digital emulations.
Often, yeah. Players describe the tone as warmer, maybe a bit less precise, but more alive than many digital counterparts.
Yeah.
They were simple, sure, but very musical and incredibly expressive within their bounds.
So wrapping up our deep dive here, the big takeaway really feels like the BIOS TW1 Touch Wah wasn't just, another effect pedal hitting the scene.
Not at all.
It fundamentally shifted dynamic filtering,
Right.
took it from being this niche, expensive studio thing, and made it an essential, accessible tool for the everyday musician's pedal board. It used simple reactive analog tech, cleverly added that up-down mode for versatility.
And really defined that early BIS sound for modulation and filter effects. It just nailed the brief, make funk attainable, earned its spot in history, for sure.
Absolutely.
And maybe that leaves us with a final thought, something for you listeners to chew on. Think about how this design from 1978, despite being so deliberately simple, just 3 controls, a fixed sweep range,
Right.
how it still has such a distinct, sought-after analog character, how it remains relevant, even desirable in today's world, absolutely saturated with incredibly sophisticated digital filter modeling. What does that tell us about the enduring value of simple, well-executed analog circuits, that even now people will happily deal with weird power requirements just to chase that original 70s swish? It's pretty interesting.